Hello, and welcome to the Steve and Mark Discuss podcast, where I'll be raising a subject in a minute, and I'll be waiting for Steve's reaction this time or views. Okay, right. Um, Sometimes I look at TED Talk videos. I find them quite interesting to raise things both from my professional life and also in my personal certain subjects. I came across one the other day, and it's a talk by a woman called Barbara F. Walter, who actually does some contributions onto some mainstream media, particularly in the US, outlets in the US. Um, and she is apparently, she's been studying civil wars for about 20 years. That's what she said on the video. A rather interesting subject to discuss, I'd have thought, or look at. In 2017, she joined a task force for the US government that would look around the world at countries and see which countries could be entering into civil war using different factors. Apparently, there's 38 factors which they look at, and this is done with psychologists and data analysts and people like this. So it's quite a, if you like, a scientifically done investigation. Okay. Anyway, she was talking about different things, different types of government, and one she says that a government can, a an administration can quite easily go from being a democracy to an anarchy um, administration, which basically means it's voted for, but it doesn't actually do the will of the people. Yeah, and she did cite Hungary as being an example of one of these. Again, for me, Eastern Europe, I mean, the Hungarians are probably behaving how they have done for many, many years. So apparently, she goes around interviewing people who lived through, leading up to, and lived through civil war. And she says, yes, they produce a list every I think, 4 semesters, 4 times a year. They all meet in a hotel somewhere and put together a list, which then which then got sent to the White House. So in 2017, we all know who was in charge then. Um, I don't know if this task force is still going or not. Yeah. But yeah, but the fact she's doing a TED talk or something that's quite sensitive is a rather interesting um, thing that presumably she's had clearance to do that. Anyway, she was looking at it and she's talking about different aspects. And she says the most interesting thing is the people that she interviewed did not see a civil war coming. Couldn't believe it. Yeah. But she's saying the difference that she noticed was rather interesting. It was identity versus ideology. That what can happen is that an administration, I think, changes from ideology to identity emphasis, and if not, the population do as well, from what I understood from this video. Um, Interestingly, she did say that the only country they didn't analyse, because they're not allowed to analyse it, was the US itself, because they're not allowed to monitor individual citizens or anyone. Yeah. And she was making the point but they did look at it, and in 2016, she said the situation was quite fair, reasonable, nothing untoward to looking at. 2019, she says it began to get a bit wobbly, the situation in the US. In 2020, because she claims that because the election was questioned by individuals, that the US was beginning to go into decline and was declared a potential, in her opinion, or somebody's opinion. Okay. So she's making it now. She made the point that civil wars are not normally started by the downtrodden, the poorest in societies, nor are they started by the power brokers, the senior people, and the wealthy in society. They're started by people who are feeling a bit disenfranchised, people that have power and are now losing it. And she said that in the case of the US, it's middle class white men. Um, she's saying this because she's saying the balance is now, as they see it, disappearing. Their values are being disappearing. Um, they're, I won't say becoming a minority, but yes, what they considered at one point was the norm is now changing, which is a rather again interesting analysis to make. Um, Now, she also cited, and she did say English speaking countries are probably at risk now. Okay, US, but she said along with that, the Canadian administration and Canada could be the next country. She then said New Zealand and UK could be next. The final point she really did make is because of climate change and people disappearing from the south hemisphere up into northern hemisphere, that the balance could be changing and therefore lead to civil wars. Over to you, Steve.
Thank you for that hot potato. Look, a couple of years ago, I wrote on Facebook that society is in 5 different levels. You've got the poor, who are always going to be poor. Doesn't matter what the economy is like, they're going to be poor. They're poor. Then you've got the just above the poor, the aspiring middle class, and the aspiring middle class, they're still struggling, but they tend not to. They don't have time to lift the head up and have a look in what's around them because they're too busy working, trying to make money so they can get to the next level. The next level is the middle class, where they're not. It would be like a teacher or something like that in the UK, I suppose. They have time to look around them, and they have so much time with themselves that they can start to protest about things that they don't like about. But independent of the economy, then you get the upper echelons of the middle class, the wealthy, that can absorb any brusque movement of the economy because they have enough money to support themselves, even though they complain a little bit. But in general, these are the people that live in the detached houses and then of course you've got the rich, and that they say that the rich, is only 6%, but it's more than that. It's the uber rich that are 6%. The billionaires.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the rich. If you've got over 1 million, to me, you're rich,
Mm.
and they can absorb anything that goes on about. So, who is most volatile? Which level of society is the most volatile and the most vulnerable? Is the middle of the middle class, right? Because they've got time to think. They've got time to feel really, really hard done to. They aren't rich enough to absorb any of the differences that are going to go on around them, and so they don't, and also they don't want to drop to the next level down. And so when they start screaming, you know that something's not right. You know that you've got a problem. Houston, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
What also creates an awful lot of civil wars are third parties. So I was reading a couple of days ago. I think it was like over the last 30 years, for 30, 40 years that the US got themselves involved in 200 conflicts that weren't in the US.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
the Libyas of this world, the Iraqs of this world, the China and Russia were involved collectively in 20 over the same time period.
Mm.
So I also think that the problems. I mean, was Libya a civil war? When the US wants to have a change of regime,
Mm.
is that a civil war?
No.
They make a civil war. They make a civil war
Yeah.
in the country to
Yeah.
destabilize. You know, so has this lady been counting these civil wars as well?
Well, I mean, it was a TED talk, a 15-minute TED
Yeah, I
talk.
know. No,
So
but I'm
yeah,
asking this
yeah.
question
So
in the air. You know,
yeah,
I'm not saying you personally spoke with her,
yeah,
but you know, this lady, she did all this studying,
yeah.
but you know, and she's talking about things internally in the country,
Mm.
but she didn't say what triggered the
No, no.
the conflicts in
Yeah,
those countries.
no. I mean, yeah. She just
Many times, many times, it's outside influence.
yeah. I mean, yeah.
It's
I mean, she noticed that there are 38 factors, and it was really surprising which was the top ones. But they noticed. I mean, they've done an analysis of it. Um, yeah, it would be interesting to know how they reached these conclusions. I can see
well,
the logic in it, but
the lady had a think tank and she had her group going around.
mm,
Parallel to that, the US has got a little group called the CIA,
yeah,
and they go around. They go around to find out, along with all the consulates and embassies.
yeah. Well, that's it. She did. Yeah, she mentioned the CIA are not allowed to monitor people in the US, but go out
No, they're
in other
not.
countries.
But the
Other
FBI
countries.
are. But
Yeah.
the FBI are. You know, but CIA,
Mm,
they monitor other countries, of
yeah.
course,
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
and the spies,
Yeah.
and so all this information that they get,
Yeah.
they pass on to the US, to the government of the US, or
Mm,
the heads
yeah.
of who they need to tell,
Mm,
and they go in to infiltrate. I mean, there are things that are happening in Africa now
mm,
where um, I don't believe that without the US's help,
mm.
they would be happening.
Yeah. I get you.
Well, the typical one is Ukraine.
Mm,
If the US wasn't involved with the Ukraine,
mm,
that problem would have been resolved a long time ago.
mm.
A long time ago. You know, you had the civil war, you had the Donbass, you
Yeah.
had the west of Ukraine fighting against the Donbass.
Mm,
But of course, as we know, it was the US that meddled
mm.
by taking out the ex president, which is now the ex president,
Yeah.
and putting this one in.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's that I think it's that more than anything else that
Well,
creates civil wars.
yeah, like you say, it's a trigger. It's how do you encourage people on the ground? It's moving in. I mean,
Of course.
it's a whisper, whisper, whisper. What if we did this? If we did that?
No, I'm not saying that the root of all evil is the US,
No, no, it's
right?
unfair to do that. But
But
yeah,
however, they have been involved. I'll have to fish out this article and reread it again because I can't remember when
mm,
between which years this measurement was done.
yeah,
But I mean, Russia involved in 200 conflicts. The US
US,
involved
yeah,
in 200 conflicts, and Russia and China together 20 over the same time period. It makes you think
well, yeah, of course,
because the US considers itself anyway as the world's policeman.
yeah. Oh, it's the world's policeman or the schoolyard bully. You make your choice on that one. But yeah, yeah,
Either way, they have to be involved somewhere.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, what they're doing. I mean, the problem is, yes, the US. Everyone looks to them. The US are always damned whatever they do. They're damned if they do and damned if they don't. If they don't show an interest in a region, they're just ignoring the problem. If they do, they're creating it, or not creating it, if not adding to it. It's
If the
Yeah.
If the US has an interest in the region, it's what's called in the interest of the US.
Yeah, of course.
The interest of the US, and they're gonna start messing around.
Yeah. Yeah.
If like our in the other podcast that we mentioned about
Yeah.
Armenia
Yeah.
in Azerbaijan,
Yeah.
the US doesn't have a dog in that fight, so they just let them scrap it out together and
Yeah.
sit around the table and talk about it.
Okay.